This is the first video out of lesson 1.3 relating SI and imperial units. So the first thing is we need to know how big our SI and imperial units are compared to each other. Now if you look these up on the internet, you can get a lot of decimal places. 1 inch equals somewhere around 2.54 centimeters. 1 centimeter is about 0.39370079 inches. We aren't going to use that many decimal places, mainly because your book doesn't use that many decimal places. And so what we're going to do is we'll stick with our formula sheet, which has generally 1 decimal place for most of these, and we'll just stick with our instructions that usually say round at the end. So for example, some of the numbers you'll see on your formula sheet are here, that we have 1 inch. We're just going to use 2.5 rather than the more accurate 2.54. And the reason for that isn't that it's more correct. It's in fact slightly less correct, but your textbook uses it. And so when you want to check your answers, I want you to be able to check to see if you're doing the question correctly. I don't really care if your conversion is a tiny little bit less precise. So 1 foot is about 30 centimeters, which means it's about 0.3 meters. 1 yard is about 0.9 meters. 1 mile is 1.6 kilometers. Again, these are all approximate. The other way around, if I take some SI units and say how many or how many imperial units there are, 1 millimeter is about 0.04 inches. So 1 centimeter is 0.4 inches. A meter is 39 inches, which makes it 3¼ feet. And 1 mile is 1 kilometer is 6/10 of a mile. These are far from perfect. Like I said, they've been rounded, but they will allow you to check answers in the back of the book. So the first question I want to cover is, if I drove 127 miles east from Calgary and you drove 202 kilometers west from Calgary, the question is, who's further from Calgary? And unless you have an extremely good sense of miles and kilometers, this would be an awfully hard one to do in your head. So what you would want to do is convert one of these units to the other. So what I chose to do for my work is I'm going to take 127 miles and I'm going to change it into kilometers. So I look on that formula sheet and I realize that there's 1.6 kilometers for every 1 mile. And I've set it up this way with unit analysis to make sure my miles cancel out and my final answer should end up being in kilometers. And if you multiply that, you get a number that's a little bit bigger than 203. It's about 203.2 kilometers. And so that number is definitely larger than 202. So if I drove 125 or 127 miles, then it means I am further than you. But the most important piece there again is that unit conversion, sticking with the same method we used in the last one, getting units to cancel that you don't want.